I want to invite Andrew Black from Certified Kind up to talk about soil health on organic farms. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you.
Well, hello. Thank you. It's good to be here. And yes, my name's Andrew Black, and I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Certified Kind, which offers third-party inspection and certification services for growers, cannabis growers and producers, processors that are dedicated to organic farming and processing techniques. I should mention that my background is that in 2005 I started working for Oregon Tilth as the first full-time farm inspector and food processing inspector. And in that position, I've been able to inspect hundreds of organic farms throughout the Pacific Northwest and the United States and Latin America. So tonight I'm talking about soil health, and I'm bringing that experience of visiting a lot of organic farms to the discussion. So let's see here. Okay, so I wanted to start out with this, the cover of the current Marijuana Venture magazine. This is November's edition, and I don't know how well you can see that. It's kind of washed out, but what you're seeing here is this is a Tier 3 recreational grow up in north central Washington. And the caption here says, "The future has arrived. High quality, sun-grown cannabis produced on a commercial scale." And my question is this the future, or is this just the present replicated on a larger scale? And also, does the future include discussions about sustainability and soil health? Is planting cannabis in containers a sustainable farming practice? So I don't know if you can see it or not, but all of these plants, there's probably, wow, I don't know, there's 500 that I can see there. They're all planted in containers above ground, and that's a common practice. But my response to this question might surprise you. Okay, so here's another picture of that same farm. And here's a picture of an organic blueberry farm in Oregon. Just sort of I'm just wondering, are we gonna go this way with cannabis, or are we gonna go this way with cannabis? This is a picture of conventional blueberry production in Oregon, and you can see there herbicide damage in between the rows, and you can also see a lot of pesticide being applied. There's probably also a dependence on chemical fertilizers at this blueberry farm. What you can't see in the background right there is a little play structure. It's a children's slide. So we have either someone living here or a school or something. So these are some things to think about. Aha, yes, because I'm speaking about organic agriculture and healthy soils, of course, I have to have a quote from Wendell Berry, right? So on the importance of soil. The soil is the great connector of lives, the source and destination of all. It is the healer, the restorer, the resurrector, etc. So what does that really mean? Hey, soil's more awesome than a double rainbow, right? But what I think Wendell Berry is really referring to there is the cycle of life and death within the soil, and also soil stewardship. So those are things that resonate with organic farmers everywhere in the world. So what is organic agriculture? Well, first of all, I would just like to know how many of you are backyard vegetable farmers? And how many of you are organic backyard vegetable farmers? Okay, and how many of you are medical cannabis farmers? And how many of you are organic medical cannabis farmers? Okay. So, getting up on stage in Eugene, Oregon and talking about soil health, it's like going to Brazil and trying to do a presentation about soccer, or going to Italy and trying to give a presentation about wine. But, I'm going to give it a shot here. And there's a lot of definitions about what organic is and what organic isn't, and we all have our own personal opinions and beliefs about those. I'm offering up the definition that IFOAM has put out there. IFOAM is the International Forum on Organic Agricultural Movements. think I got that right. But anyway, they break it down into 4 principles. First, the principle of health. Organic agriculture should sustain and enhance the health of soil, plant, animal, human, and planet as one and indivisible. Ecology. Organic agriculture should be based on living ecological systems and cycles, work with them, emulate them, and help sustain them. Fairness. Organic agriculture should build on relationships that ensure fairness with regard to the common environment and life opportunities. Care. Organic agriculture should be managed in a precautionary and responsible manner to protect the health and well-being of current and future generations and the environment. So, one of the requirements for organic farmers, at least in the USDA organic program, is the use of cover crops, the application of plant residues and animal manures or compost, and also crop rotations. So, cannabis growers here in Oregon, especially recreational cannabis growers that won't be as hamstrung by the area in which they grow in, have an opportunity to produce compost on their farm. And I don't know if you can see this or not, but this is a compost pile right here. This is at Gathering Together Farm in Philomath, Oregon, which is a really locally famous organic farm. If you haven't been there, you should go visit. They have a farm stand and they also have a restaurant. And they do a wonderful job of composting. They make high quality compost on their farm. And over the years, what I've seen is that the most successful vegetable farming operations, they incorporate on-farm composting as part of their system. Or they find very cheap local sources of compost. But regardless of how it gets onto the farm, the compost gets there. So this is an opportunity if you're going to be doing recreational cannabis, is to think about, okay, how am I going to get compost out there? Also, cover cropping. This is a field of fava bean and rye near Santa Cruz, California. The photo is beautiful. It's a little washed out, but this will be turned under and then planted into strawberry. So legume cover crops convert atmospheric nitrogen into forms that are available by the plant. So here's crimson clover. This is crimson clover in a 50-foot row in January, and by April, you've got a nice canopy. And then once it reaches 33% floration, you cut it down. You leave the stalks and the flowers and everything, all that biomass right there where it was grown, because it's the biomass that has all the nitrogen in it. You can dig it into the soil to increase the organic matter in your soil, but also to retain that nitrogen. And also, it's important to note here that a crop like crimson clover can fix 50 to 150 pounds of nitrogen per acre. So this is a pretty cheap and easy tool to use. And I don't know, is there anyone out here that uses crimson clover in their containers right now, the medical cannabis community? No, maybe not, but it is definitely an opportunity. Right now is the time to get some bulk crimson clover seed and to seed those outdoor pots if they retain soil over the cool season here. So crop rotations. I have a lot of questions about crop rotations for cannabis. And so I'm wondering if crop rotations will be an available tool to cannabis producers. Will they be able to have probably not multiple sites? Will there be financial constraints limit crop rotation for cannabis growers? I mean, who's going to give up growing cannabis to grow garlic or potatoes, you know? But crop rotation might be a really good way to break pest cycles, especially with some of the pest cycles that we're seeing lately. And if you went to GanjaCon, I think you heard Erica talk about that, some of those killer pests that are here. So I think more research needs to be done into how to incorporate a crop rotation in cannabis. So multiple long-term studies show benefits of organic farming, okay? So when it comes to crop yield, Usually conventional farming beats organic farming, but on a lot of crops, they're very similar. Soil erosion in organic farming systems is less than in conventional systems. Net returns are usually higher on organic farms because of the price premium that farmers can get for organic. Soil carbon, we're talking about organic matter in the soil is usually higher, so that's also a benefit to an ecosystem service because you're sequestering carbon at a higher rate than a conventional farm. Soil fertility is usually higher on an organic farm. Fertilizer use is lower. Herbicide use is non-existent on an organic farm. Energy use is less on an organic farm, and greenhouse emissions are usually less on an organic farm. So this is another study Rodale Institute did in Kutztown, Pennsylvania. And one of the reasons I included this slide was just because it's such a nice picture of an idyllic farm. You've got multiple species there. You've got even the grain silos, you know. So, but this is a dramatically different farming system than cannabis. And so a lot of these studies that they've done about the benefits of organic have been done in grains. So how does, and one thing that they totally, a lot of times omit from these studies is the soil food web, okay? Which I'm going to talk, we sort of have been talking about soil biology and soil life, but in a lot of these studies about organics, it's, for some reason, it's omitted. But here's a diagram of the soil food web. And this is, you know, the idea of soil life, soil biology, and how important it is. And you have got nematodes, fungi, organic matter, bacteria, protozoa, nematodes. All of these characters play their part, right? And so this is an easier image to see. But you have decaying organic matter feeding everything under the soil that you can't see. And Dr. Elaine Ingham in Corvallis, probably most of you have heard of her, right? So she advocates this idea of the soil food web and compost and the importance of compost teas. And the idea is basically biology in the soil breaks down soil organic matter into plant available nutrients. And so this is something that probably in conventional farming is not as prevalent because chemical fertilizers tend to kill soil microbiology. Also interesting, coming after the last talk about mycorrhizal fungi is plants produce exudates in plant roots. 85% of the energy a plant produces goes to roots, and half of that is released into the root zone to feed the soil, bacteria, and fungi that in turn make nutrients available to the plant. So now here is a picture. This is a cannabis plant in an outdoor container. And you know, what we know is that organic growers know how to feed their plants, right? I'm gonna tell you a little story. I went down to Southern Oregon recently and did 3 inspections. 2 were of cannabis farms. 1 was of a organic vegetable farm. And so when I went to the cannabis farm, okay, I'll start with the vegetable farm. I went to the vegetable farm and he was using material called it's 432 Stutzman's dehydrated poultry manure. Maybe if you're a gardener or farmer, you're probably aware of it. And so he was applying that at 2 tons per acre, okay? Which sounds respectable, right? Well, and then I went to the cannabis farm and we started talking about how much nitrogen he applies to his plants. And he basically broke it down for me, doing some quick mental math, about 2.8 pounds of nitrogen per plant. And that was in above ground containers, each about 100 square feet. So we did the math really quick and figured out that he was applying the equivalent of 13 tons of this dehydrated poultry manure product. Now, although this was 13 tons per acre, okay? So at the vegetable farm, he's applying 2 tons per acre. At the cannabis farm, he's applying the equivalent of 13 tons per acre. Now, I want to make it clear, though, that he actually wasn't using the Stutzman's product, but we just had to we had to couch it in terms that we could understand and compare with the vegetable production. So what's my point in that story? Well, actually, when I went to the mixed vegetable farm, he was growing peppers, and at 2 tons per acre, that's all he was applying was the poultry manure, right? And so when I got there, the plants looked small, yellowish. The leaves were yellowish, and it was suffering, I think, from a lack of potassium and phosphorus. And so the interesting thing is that not all organic vegetable farmers are as in tune to soil fertility and plant health as cannabis growers. So oftentimes you'll go to an organic farm and they'll be totally compliant to the regulation. I'm talking about a vegetable farm now, but they might have either a lack of appreciation for what the plant needs, or a lack of knowledge about how to feed their plants, or it could be a lack of money to buy fertilizers. So that's just an anecdote. So what we're seeing then is growers using a super soil and beneficial bacteria and fungi to inoculate that soil, and they're combining also a lot of dry organic fertilizers, minerals like glacial rock dust, etc. And what I think is one of the most important parts of what I'm seeing on the organic cannabis farms that I visit is compost tea, and high quality compost. How many of you out there make your own compost tea? Right, right. And so if we had a room full of a similar amount of just organic vegetable growers, I would bet you that maybe half or less of those people that just raise your hand would be making compost tea. When I first started doing organic farm inspections, I saw people dabbling with compost tea. And now you kind of see that equipment shelved. And I'm not exactly sure why, but I'm just letting you know what I'm seeing. And so I'll keep going here. Soil health indoor. So now we're not only talking about potting soil in containers, but we're talking about an indoor environment. You're seeing the same thing in organic systems, right? Super soils and compost teas. What are we doing there? We're basically feeding the biology in that soil. We're creating biology and we're creating life in that soil. Oh, and this is a reminder for me to tell you another story. So if I recently went to this operation right here, this indoor organic farming system, and I stuck my head down underneath the canopy, which you can't see. I stuck my head down in the pots and sort of pushed away the top crusty layer of soil, and the soil was teeming with life, just crawling with life. And so to me, that's an indicator that he doesn't have to worry about getting his pH right or with his inputs as much, because the soil bacteria will tell you, if the soil is at the right pH or not. So in this case, he had created an outdoor environment indoor. But not only that, I really truly believe that this environment in these pots was something that you don't see outside, because the environment is so stable in the indoor grow. The temperature is regulated, the humidity is regulated, the lighting is pretty good. So he was able to create inadvertently perfect conditions for his soil biology. I guess I should say it wasn't inadvertent. He was doing it on purpose, but not using maybe the same language that I would to describe it. Okay, so my question is, does starting with a super rich potting soil and drenching with high quality compost tea have the same effect on the soil food web, the biology of the soil, as long-term applications of compost and incorporation of legume cover crops? That's the question. I don't have the answer. So I think one of the points that I'm trying to make here is that in this controlled environment, in an indoor situation, and in these isolated outdoor medical cannabis grows in Oregon, what we really have are real life laboratories. Cannabis growers are doing things that other vegetables, herbs, and fruit growers are not doing. There's a lot of innovation going on in the cannabis community that organic farmers can learn from. And I think forward-thinking trends for organic cannabis growers going into recreational era here in Eugene or in Oregon will be to use legume cover crops to their advantage, and to leave old roots in the soil and let the soil biology take hold of those roots, work its magic. Reuse soil in indoor and outdoor settings. Maintain straw mulch layer will help give that microbiology a good environment to thrive. Introduce worms, on-farm composting, compost tea to support biology and feed the microbes in the soil. So I wanted to end again with this image because that's the one we started out with, where we have all these plants in their pots above ground. And what is the future of sustainable cannabis farming? Can this farm become a sustainable cannabis farm? Is it sustainable right now? So with that, I think I will encourage you to study techniques used by organic vegetable farmers. There's a lot of resources out there on that, so cross-train as much as you can. And also, if you're trying to look at acquiring new property in Oregon to start your own farm, check out the web soil survey maps that are online there. They will tell you you can type in your address, the address that you're interested in. It will tell you the soil type and also the land capability class. If it's a 1, that is excellent farm soils. It's a 5, that's rocky ground in general. Okay, that's my presentation. Thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for Andrew?
So you're talking about cover crops. What rotation crop would be the best to provide new life to soil that's already had cannabis grown in it?
What rotation crop?
Yes,
Like
you're talking
what to
about
plant
rotation
instead
crops.
of-
What are plants that you would use to?
I have no idea. That's work that cannabis growers are going to have to figure out.
Clover is wonderful. I also have a farm up in Portland, and we do a lot of rotation. I hadn't even thought about what would be the best
Right.
for cannabis,
Right, because
particularly.
in vegetable or grain production, people have been studying what crops work best after other crops. And so that kind of research hasn't been done in cannabis. Maybe there's some people that know about hemp farming that can share that type of information. That's probably the first place to look.
Thank you.
Yes, I'm on the advisory committee of Oregon Tilth. I missed the meeting tonight to come to this one. But my question is that apparently at the national level, there's some consternation that the word organic is being used loosely, and many people in Oregon, ads in the newspaper, et cetera. And since the federal government has no category for an agricultural plant called cannabis, the word organic should not be used. And I just wonder what you think about that, and whether you think organizations like Oregon Tilth will eventually step over that great divide and try to certify it, given the federal guidelines we have right now.
So currently, the USDA National Organic Program is responsible for implementing organic certification through accredited certifiers. Now, there's about 54 accredited certifiers in the United States, and not a single one of them can certify cannabis as organic. And so what you're seeing, you can drive down the streets here of Eugene or go up to Washington or Colorado, and people are using the term organic to represent cannabis. And technically, if they're marketing it with a retail label and it says organic on the package, then they're breaking the law, because organic is a term that is regulated as a marketing term by the USDA. Okay, and so and that's one of the reasons why we started Certified Kind. It's a private agricultural and processing standard for cannabis. So folks that want to go through that rigorous inspection certification process, they can go through this private standard, certified kind, to represent their product as a certified product, but they're not allowed to say organic or use the term organic. And I think that Oregon Tilth will step into it just as every other certifier will step into it as soon as the USDA says go. When that will be, who knows? When they delist cannabis as a Schedule I substance, probably.
My question is, using super soil versus compost teas, between the gardens that you've seen, is there any other, or have you noticed either one showing more soil activity than another?
Well, what I was trying to hit home was that they're using super soils and compost tea at the same time.
Combination.
Yeah. So there's kind of there's competing theories about soil health. Okay. On one hand, you have like the old road ale. You know, the followers of road ale, which was like a long time ago. We're talking like 1950s, and they basically said, "Hey, just add organic matter to your garden." Leaves, compost, decaying matter. There's something called humus that that is an important part of soil health. Okay, and they didn't go too much further than that. There's another school of thought, which is sort of the William Albrecht school of thought, which, and also Steve Solomon. I don't know if some of you have read like Gardening West of the Cascades, but they basically say, hey, look, the soils need to be balanced. We need to add minerals to those soils, especially in like this region where there's lots of rain, because minerals have been washed out of the soils over time. So we can't just keep adding compost and expect that we're going to have miraculous soils. We need to add things like volcanic rocks, rock dust, glacial rock dust, or things like that. And then you have with this, so the super soil, that's kind of what you're doing, right? You're taking an inert soil and you're adding a lot of nutrients, dry nutrients, minerals.
Correct.
And then with the compost tea, you're almost activating that super soil so that you're promoting an environment for rapid growth of bacteria and fungi and protozoa, etc.
Thank you.
I don't know whether you're familiar with this book, but it's called Biodynamic Farming, and it was Biodynamic Farming. It was published about 1976, and it was the results of 10 years of research on biodynamic farming by Dr. Herbert Kopf. And in that book is the only place I've ever read in the English language that hemp is the companion plant to potato, and it prevents potato blight. So you kind of made a disparaging remark about potato, but 40% of my Irish population, my ancestry, died because of the potato famine. And I think we need to bring this to the world's attention, that for any vegetable product that can be used worldwide as a favorable thing to grow and easy to grow, the potato has been designated by the United Nations as that product for world survival. And that would justify us in legalizing all hemp and cannabis. And apparently the exudations from the soil into the soil of the hemp plant goes into the potato and prevents the blight, and you can compost the roots too. So you might want to look up that book, Biodynamic Farming or Biodynamic Agriculture by Herbert Kopf from the 70s.
Thank you.
Do you know of any problems that have occurred as a result of the transfer of pathogens through the use of compost tea?
What type of pathogens?
Fungal pathogens, for example.
I don't know anything about that. I think that if you brew your compost tea correctly, it's not supposed to contain any sort of like soil fungal pathogens.
I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but recently I made a batch of bokashi,
Oh, uh-huh.
And I accidentally put like 20 times the amount of minerals that I should have for the recipe. And my question is, do you think this could do any harm to my compost pile or my garden? Is there such thing as too much minerals, especially activated by EM1 and everything going on in the Bokashi
Well,
system?
what kind of minerals were they?
It was a whole bag of Cascade minerals.
Of what?
It's called Cascade minerals. It's just a blend.
Oh,
and
Cascade. Isn't that, well, crushed, like, rock?
it has like many different minerals in it. It's like a 10-pound
It's
bag.
produced locally here?
Yeah.
I doubt it.
Any other questions for Andrew?
I just got here toward the end, but you were mentioning future trends, talking about reusing soil. Why would, typically we don't reuse soil. I've spent a lot of money on new dirt every year. So can you elaborate on reusing soil and if there's some sort of process to put it through?
Yeah, I think that what you'll see going forward is that folks that are able to reuse their soil are able to do so because they're paying very close attention to the soil biology in that indoor garden. Because I think that's probably what you're referring to mostly. Indoor, now you said indoor and outdoor? You did. Okay. Yeah, well, I think it's probably easier to reuse your soil in an outdoor setting and to just do like a no-till right into an existing outdoor container and not disturb that soil. I think that will be the trend, not only to save money, but I think folks will start to see the payoffs of having like a true soil biology, helping them with that endomycorrhizae function that Jay was talking about, and also all the other important fungi and bacteria that are in the soil. And then indoor, there are people, you can Google no-till cannabis, indoor no-till cannabis, indoor organic no-till cannabis, and see some pretty fascinating things that people are doing out there. And I think it's, for them, the take-home message that I get is that they're really supporting that soil biology. So they don't apply the same type of inputs that you might normally in an indoor setting because they don't want to disrupt that soil biology. They're also doing things like planting cover crops indoors. So it's out there, and I think that that will be the trend, at least in organic cannabis production 5-10 years from now.
Can you go into that indoor no-till thing a little bit more? Like, what do those setups look like? I would imagine with a no-till setup, you would want to have a bed of soil that you would leave for a long time and not disturb.
To the extent that it's no-till, I think what they're trying to say there is that they're trying to do as little disruption to that soil environment as possible.
So where do you get the soil in the first place? Are these?
So they're using a high quality potting soil, and they're amending it. They're basically starting with a super soil, okay, and then reusing that super soil over and over again as much as they can.
Okay.
You know, and that's not necessarily something new. I was at a cucumber greenhouse, a 20-acre cucumber greenhouse in Arizona, and they were using peat moss. They have these bags that you can just unroll. You unfurl them, and it's peat moss. So they unfurled them in these little indentations in the bed of the greenhouse. There's no soil in this greenhouse, and they use those peat moss bags at least for 2 growing cycles. Okay, and cucumbers are 90-day plants. So these folks are highly invested in that crop, and they had no qualms about reusing their peat moss. And they weren't even taking very good care of that peat moss, to tell you the truth. Not as much care as an indoor medical grower takes of their potting soil.
Any additional questions? All right, thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you.
You can also find them online, certified-kind.com. You may have noticed we have 2 video cameras in the room. Both of these gentlemen have been kind enough to video record several of our most recent sessions. David Raymond over here has his videos posted at videooregon.org. Make sure you go to videooregon.org. I first went to videooregon.com and it was the wrong site, so make sure you go to videooregon.org. And then Joshua Parker of Stardog Botanicals has the camera in the back, healthorganics.com/cannabis-science-pub. He informed me that he just got last month's videos posted onto his website, but tomorrow they'll be organized well. So if you log in tomorrow and check it out, you'll be able to see last month's Cannabis Science Pub videos posted, and then probably by next Science Pub you'll be able to see tonight's presentation as well. So a big thank you to both David and Joshua for videotaping our sessions so that you can review them later.